What can we make for you today?
Hi, can I have a double ristretto, 20 ounce, half soy, non-fat, decaf, organic chocolate brownie? Iced vanilla double shot gingerbread latte, extra hot with foam, whipped cream, upside down. Double blended, one sweet and low and one NutraSweet on ice.
Would you like some help?
Yes, please.
There you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We've been working on this series, What You Ask For Says a Lot. So it's kind of a play on words, and you kind of have, it's one of those things you have to kind of think about. And if you were here at the very beginning, we started with looking at the life of Solomon in the Old Testament, because that's what sort of got us into this series when we were back planning, was the idea that Solomon, he becomes king after David, and he, gets to stand before God, and he says this, because God says to Solomon, says, what do you want? You just tell me what you want. It's kind of like, your wildest dreams, the genie out of the bottle that says, hey, what do you want? I'll give you whatever you want. And Solomon does this incredible thing. It really is amazing that he says this. He says, okay, here's what I want. And this is sort of my interpretation of his words. He says, I want a heart that is tuned in to you. It's really just like Brian talked about before the song he shared. And then Kathy prayed, give us a tuned in heart. And he says, I want a heart that is tuned into you. And then he says, and what I want is I want a working wisdom, my words, my interpretation. I want a working wisdom that is beyond my years. Because you have to remember, Solomon's 20 years old. He takes over as the king of a nation. And he's really overwhelmed by it. Most of us would think if God just said, what do you want? I'll give you whatever you want. We were like, oh, yes. I want to win every time. I want all the money in the world, right? I want to be the most famous person there ever was. I want to be smarter than everybody. Those would be the things that we would ask for. But God was so impressed that Solomon would ask for these things because he recognized the responsibility that he had. He took it seriously. And that made a big difference for God. And then he asked this third thing, which I think it ties right into it, and it's so important. He says, and I want to know what is right. I interpret it as right in your sight. I want to know the difference in right and wrong from your perspective. I want to know what really is right and wrong. Not just in the moment, not just what I feel like at the time, but what would really be the right thing to do as opposed to the wrong thing to do. And God is so impressed, and he is so moved by Solomon's request that he says, not only will I give you those things, I will give you the things that you did not ask for. And he says, I will make sure you win every time. That's what he said. I will make you the richest guy that has ever been in the world at the time. Now, I know that you think, what was that prayer again? Because that means I get the, yeah, that's exactly how we think. And last week we especially talked about this. It kind of goes on with what Kathy prayed also, even though she didn't know I was going to do this. But not only give me a tuned-in heart, but turn my eyes. And we said this last week, that wisdom always begins with the eyes, how you see things. Because if you don't see things from a certain perspective, you won't know what to ask for. It will change what you ask for. You will ask for the wrong things instead of the things that impress God, that delight God, and cause God to realize you really do want a tuned-in heart, don't you? Because your eyes see things that other people, their eyes they just don't see. And in fact, as we're going to go to this passage, this story, because this morning I want to talk about the times that you ask for things, and then the answer that you're going to get, the answer that's coming to you, you realize later, might not have been the answer that I was hoping for. I thought it was a good answer. I made my request, but all of a sudden, what am I going to do, not just with the request, what am I going to do with the answer that was given to me? And this is a story that you're probably familiar with. In fact, I'll go ahead and ask, how many people have ever heard of the story of the Good Samaritan? How many people? You've heard of the story of the Good Samaritan? Okay, only 3 people have heard it. Okay, so you've heard the story of the Good Samaritan. Most of us know exactly what it means when we hear Good Samaritan. What does it mean when someone says he's a Good Samaritan? It means that he's a good person, right? He did a good thing. But there's a lot more to it than just, he's a good person. In fact, the story is a whole lot deeper than that. I still remember an episode of Seinfeld that kind of made the Good Samaritan law. There are laws like that. They're called the Good Samaritan law. And if you see somebody hurting and somebody struggling and somebody in trouble, you, by law, must intervene or we put you in jail. And if you ever saw the Seinfeld episode, they saw a guy I think he was getting his car stolen and maybe mugged or whatever, and they said, oh, look at that. And they took out their video camera and videoed it, but didn't do anything about it, and they threw him in jail. So, he's a comedian. So, hopefully you wouldn't do that. Most of us would just run. But, that's what the Good Samaritan is all about. And here's the story of Jesus telling in Luke the story of the Good Samaritan. Incidentally, right before this, if you go back and read these verses, Jesus actually talks about what you see in it. And he says to the disciples, blessed are you because of what you see. The prophets before you wanted to see what you see. They wanted to hear what you hear. But you get a chance to hear them and see them. And he even said this right before that, not doing the whole chapter, but he said this right before it. He said, and God, I praise you that you have hidden these things from the wise and the important and those that think they're all that, and you have revealed these things to those that seem to other people as being simple or not the smartest, not the top dogs in the land. You've revealed them to those people. So here's the story. This is in Luke chapter number 10, and beginning in verse number 25, this is how the story goes. It says, one day, an expert in religious law. Now, that meant this guy was a lawyer, because in their day, there was nothing else in Israel but religious law. Even the civil law came out of the religious law. So this is someone who is obviously smart. They are important. They are a thinker. This is somebody who's crafty, and this is someone who's thinking ahead, at least in his mind. He's thinking ahead, and in his mind, I'm thinking further ahead than other people think because I'm just smarter than they are. And so this is the person that comes up to him. It says he stood. And listen to this. He stood, say these 2 words with me. He stood up to what? Test Jesus. So here's Jesus. Here is this religious lawyer who, then they're both standing up. So apparently everyone else that's gathered there is probably sitting down, and he stands up to put him to the test. So he's bold. He's not embarrassed at all. There's nothing that holds him back from asking some things of him, but he's giving, the writer, Luke, is giving the understanding of why he was doing these things, why he's asking Jesus this, and why he's so bold. So he stood up to test Jesus by asking him this question, and it is a request. Teacher, what should I do to inherit eternal life? It's not the first time Jesus was asked that. This question had been asked before, and you're going to, as we read the answer, you're going to see that this guy probably was around when the question had been asked before. And Jesus replied to him with another question, which is smart. He says, well, what does the law of Moses say? And then he adds this, which is really important to how Jesus understands this man and how Jesus would understand you and me. He says, how do you read it? How do you understand it? If someone were to ask you that question, and you would know the answer is, well, what does the law of Moses say? What has been handed down to us through the ages from those who came before us, came down from God through them. Here's the law of Moses. How do you understand it? How do you read it? Good question, isn't it? Think about it. Good question. How do you read it? How do you understand it? So here's what he says. The man answered, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your strength, and all your mind. And then if you're there at the scene, I can't help but picture, it's not in the text, but it just seems like it's probably true. This guy's bold, he's standing up. This guy probably has a little bit of a smile or a smirk on his face when he goes ahead and he adds this, and love your neighbor as yourself. See, because he'd heard Jesus speak before. He knew this is exactly how Jesus answers the question. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, your strength, and, say it with me, and what? Love your neighbor as you love yourself. So he knew. In other words, he is sitting there thinking, I can handle him because I know his answers. I know exactly how he would answer it. And Jesus, here's his reply. Verse number 28. Right, Jesus told him. And then he says this. Do this, and you will live. Now, he doesn't just say, you've got the right answer. You can quote it, you can say it, so that's all that matters. He says, you're right. Now go and do this, and you will live. And it says in the next verse, because this is not a guy who backs down quickly, the man wanted to justify his what? His actions. In other words, what he does. You know, right? So it's not just, okay, it's not the right answer, but I can handle this. He's come back to me with another answer, and in this answer, I'm smart, I'm well equipped, I'm not caught off guard. Okay, do this, and you will live. And it says, and he wants to justify his actions, so he asks Jesus another question. Here's his question, and he says this. Isn't this a great question? Say this one with me. Here's the next question. And what? Who is my neighbor? Who is my neighbor? Who does this apply to? Where do you take this? Okay, it's sort of like, right, the first commandment is love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind. And the problem is, how do you substantiate that? How do you say, and that means if you do that, you will do these things? Because he's an expert in law. And that's what law is. Law is taking, what is said that needs to be done and defining it by actual things that you can substantiate, that you can say, okay, that means boom, boom, boom. And today, that's what a lawyer does. A lawyer goes in and says, okay, this is the morally right thing, but here's what the law says. And the law takes it down to, you do this, you don't do this. If you're going down the road, someone told me a couple weeks ago, they're driving down the road, they weren't paying attention, and they went over the speed limit. Anyone ever done that before? Okay, good. I just want to make sure that we were filled with people that have never gone over the speed limit. And as he said, I didn't realize that I was going over the speed limit. Anybody ever made that statement before? Yeah, every time you get pulled over, I did not realize I was going over the speed limit. He got pulled over. The guy says to him, says, do you know how fast you were going? And he honestly says, the truth is, and he said, you were 65 miles an hour over the speed limit. And, but you didn't realize it. No, he wasn't that far. But he's going too fast. He was driving too fast. And he realized I just kind of lost, I've done it before when I was just keeping up with the traffic, right? And then you realize I'm 20 miles over the speed limit, because everybody else is going, and you slow down and everybody starts honking at you. Get out of the way if you're not going to go. So this is a guy, he gets pulled over. He says, I just didn't realize it. I know what the law is. I just wasn't paying attention. I kind of went past it. So he's saying, you got to quantify it. You got to tell me this. And who is my neighbor? Who does that apply to? Does that apply to the guy that lives down the street who I really don't like, right? Or does that apply to the guy who's in my office and our politics are totally different? And every time we talk, we get into a fight or not. Does that apply to that guy? Or maybe, when I'm walking down the street and there's someone who is not like me, maybe they don't have what I have, or they haven't had the opportunity. Is there any kind of responsibility that I have to that person? All these things are what he's saying. You've got to lay this out and say, what are the things that you're talking about? He says, who is my neighbor? Who is my neighbor? Jesus replied with a, say it with me, with a, oh, isn't this good? See, storytelling is a whole nother level of communication. You can tell someone and you can be like, here, boom, 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 let me tell you the rules. And I know a lot of people sort of look at Christianity as that's what Christianity is. You know, the fact that you can go to boom, boom, boom and hear the rules. But the one thing, if you look at Jesus and you listen to Jesus, the one thing that Jesus did, which was so effective, I mean, it was so effective, is he took the rules or the principles or the things that he wanted you to catch, and Jesus could turn them on a dime with a story. So that you didn't say, okay, well, you told me 1, 2, and 3. He told you something that just made it real. This just put it into real, ordinary, everyday life, the way you and I live life, and all of a sudden, you can't get away from the meaning of it. You can't get away from the heart of what is said. This is what Jesus is trying to do. He's a storyteller. He is great at it. The very best communicators, just to let you know, the best communicators are storytellers. They're not 8 principal guys. They're storytellers, because this is when it goes to the heart, which is exactly what Jesus wanted to do. It's the same thing he wants to do with you and me. He wants it to go to the heart. He wants you and me to be the kind of people that say, God, I really do want you to tune in not my rules. I want you to tune in my what? My heart. That I get it. I catch it. I know what you're talking about. Now, I'll also be honest with you. A lot of times, that's not what I want God to do. It's easier, God, just give me 3 rules. Because I can kind of check those off and say, well, I mean, who is my neighbor, right? And I've got that part, but you know, you go here, you can't get away from what touches here. You can't just write that away. You can try, but all you're doing is killing your own heart, your own emotions, your own feelings. So Jesus goes, he strikes hard and deep, and he goes right into, you know, I'm going to tell you a story. Now, we don't know if this is a true story based on a story. It's something certainly that could have happened, but here's his story. He says a Jewish man was traveling on a trip from Jerusalem to Jericho. So if you're looking at the map and you see the Dead Sea here, and right over sort of to the, I'm having to turn it your way, to the west is Jerusalem, and Jericho would have been to the east. So if you go further east, you go to Jericho. But if you're going to Jericho, you go on a road that's windy, and there are a lot of hills and dips, and it actually drops about 3,000 feet in sea level down to Jericho. Jerusalem is just at that different level. So it is the perfect road, the perfect long trip. I think it's about 8 miles for robbers to hide behind hills, hide behind boulders, set up an ambush. It was the perfect place for you to get beaten up and robbed and things taken from you. It was considered, even in their day, a dangerous trip, especially to take by yourself. But it says a Jewish man's traveling. He's going from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he was attacked by bandits. They stripped him of his clothes, and that was a big deal in their day. Clothes were very valuable in their day. You couldn't just go, to TJ Maxx and, get brand names for less. They were something that people would keep, those things. They beat him up, and they left him half dead beside the road. So they were so callous with this man that they didn't even finish the job. They just beat him up enough to take everything that was valuable that he had, and they just left him there, to die with no help and with no one who cared, and really they show no mercy at all to this man. And it says in verse 31, by chance, a priest came along, which, since it's a Jewish man and he sees a priest coming along, if he kind of caught that there was a priest there, he would be going like, yes. It says the priest came along. When he saw the man, a priest came along lying there. He crossed over to the other side of the road and he passed him by. It says in verse 32, a temple assistant. That would be a Levite. They weren't priests, but they were there who also helped and assisted the priest. The temple assistant walked over and looked at him lying there, but he also passed by the other side of the road. So there are 2 men there to come by, and they can help him, and he's one of them, right? So if anyone is your neighbor, you would say, this is one of my people, right? This is someone who is of the same nationality, and the Jewish people, had such a sense of who they were as far as nationality was concerned, that they would have thought, this is one of mine. But we don't know if it's inconvenient or, if they just decide, I don't want to get into this, but they decided that the best thing to do was just to go on by. Because, if I get involved, now I'm kind of obligated. And so they bypass the heart and they just walk on by. And then he says in verse 33, Jesus says, listen to this, then a despised Samaritan. Now, the reason they call him, or the translation says a despised Samaritan, is to the Jewish people, that's who Samaritans were. They were despised people. Samaria is the area that would be north of Galilee and the area of Judah, and kind of going toward Galilee, north on the map right there, and it was the area that was known for, the Jews had separated themselves from these people because these were people who were Jewish but also had intermixed with the Canaanite people. So they sort of saw them as compromisers. They saw them as those who had now corrupted their belief, their understanding of God. In fact, even next week, we're going to talk about another incident where Jesus actually goes into Samaria. But Jewish people normally avoided it. Normally, they would go around it. And even if they were going straight north, they would go around Samaria so that they did not have to go through that territory. In fact, we know that they would go through it if they had to, but if they had to go through it, when they got to the edges of it, crossing back out of Samaria, even if they were going into a land of just, those who were purely Gentiles, they would dust the dust off of their clothes and off of their feet to show their disdain for Samaritans and for those who lived in this area. So he says a despised, because the Jewish people despised them. They wanted nothing to do with them. A despised Samaritan, you may not realize that when you heard the Good Samaritan, came along, and when he saw the man, so same thing, sees the man just like they did, he felt, say this with me, he felt what? Compassion for him. He felt compassion for him. Now, I don't know if the other two felt compassion or not. It doesn't say. But the reason Jesus tells this story and brings this out is because he's not only going to feel compassion, he's going to write, go do this and you will live. He's going to act on his compassion. He's going to do something because of what he feels, looking at the man and seeing the man's need and the man's struggle. So he feels compassion for him. Going over, verse 34 to him, the Samaritan soothed his wounds with olive oil. This is a Samaritan putting his hands on the Jewish man, soothing him with olive oil and wine, and bandaged them. So he does the best he can on the spot. And then in the next sentence it says, then he put the man on his own donkey. So he's walking, and now the Jewish man who despises him and they're enemies, he puts the man on his own donkey, and he took him to the inn where he, say this part with me, where he took, oh my goodness, he takes care of him. He is the do this guy. Do this and you will live. He takes care of him. He cares for the man there in the inn. I don't know if you're a big moviegoer, but I like, especially people that know me, I like history stuff, and I like movies that kind of reveal history. And there was a movie that came out, because I like World War II movies a lot, and there was a movie that came out not too long ago. It was about a guy who was a medic. Anybody see that one? And he's a medic, and he's a conscious objector. And because of his faith, he didn't want to, kill people, but he was going to serve his country. And so he goes into the war, and they finally let him in. And it's during World War II, and they're hitting the island of Okinawa. Has anybody seen that movie? Does anybody remember the name of that movie? Okay, good, because I went blank. So anyway, it's a really good movie, and it will pull from your heart. But one of the things I caught in the movie, he goes up after a battle on Okinawa, and they lose a lot of men, and everybody else is back in camp kind of recuperating. He stays there all night long. I don't want to give away the movie if you haven't seen it, because it's really good. But he's there, and he rescues, and I think in the movie at least, they said he rescued over 70 men. Stays there all night long and drags them back, and finds another one, drags them back, and they are all of a sudden just totally shocked at the bravery and the courage of this man. In fact, he is awarded, he gets all kind of high awards for this from the military because he, not carrying a gun, he rescues his own men. And at one point in the movie, I don't know if you caught this, and this is a true story, so I'm assuming this part's true. Somebody is telling the captain what has happened. All these guys have come back, and he says something like, and they even brought back a couple of Japanese. That's the enemy who were wounded. He said, no, they didn't make it. And the way he says it, you're kind of like, yeah, now wait a minute here. How did that work out? Yeah, because they're the enemy. That's what he's thinking. Not the guy that's rescuing people. He sees a guy that's wounded. He sees a guy that's hurt. He has compassion on him. Even though he's wearing a different uniform, he decides, I'm dragging him back also, I'm going to risk my life. His people will shoot me, for doing it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it anyway. That's compassion, isn't it? That's what this guy was doing. In fact, look at what he does at the end that he's there. He says, the next day, verse number 35, he handed the innkeeper 2 silver coins, telling him this, take care of this man. If his bill runs higher than this, I want you to catch this part. He says, I'll pay the next time I'm here. Now, Jesus asked this. Now, which of these 3 would you say was a neighbor? Because this is the question he's been asked. Well, and who is my neighbor? Which of these would you say is the neighbor to the man who was attacked by the bandit? Jesus asked. The man replied, and this is interesting because this is, this religious lawyer, really smart and all too. He's not even able to say the Samaritan. He doesn't say that. He can't say the Samaritan. You know why? Because no Jewish guy, would look at it and say, wait a minute, you just made the hero of the story a what? A Samaritan? Are you serious? You're trying to tell me that the hero of this story was a Samaritan? And so this is his answer. He says, the one who showed him what? Now I want you to think about that because this is so important for you and I to catch. Jesus is digging deep into their lives. And by telling stories, he's going really deep to the heart. It's something that you and I struggle with also. I will tell you, if this story doesn't make you uncomfortable, you need to come see me privately. I will go harder at it than I did here. Because this story makes me uncomfortable. It does. Because he's not just digging to how do you justify your actions. He's digging down to the heart, and when he gets down to the heart, it will challenge some of the things that you have decided to believe in, or some of the things that you have decided this is just the way it is, or some of the things that you have decided, like the religious lawyer, to say, in this way I can justify myself. I can say, there's nothing wrong with what I did, and Jesus doesn't let you get away with that. He never did. He never did. And the reason is because he would say, that's not what we were built for. That's not how we were built. I'm not telling you there aren't wars. I'm not telling you there aren't times you fight. I'm not telling you there aren't people who will attack you. There are. But he is going to what we were made to be and what God created us to be and what the potential of what we could be, which is why he came. And he's going all the way down and he's saying this, listen, who was the neighbor? The guy who did, the guy who acted out what? The guy who acted out what? Mercy. Who acted out based on his compassion. The guy who, don't you know that if this guy goes back and he's in Samaria and he tells this story and he says, I came across this Jewish man who'd been beaten up, and he doesn't know, of course, that other people have passed him by, but I see him there. Don't you know that his people, even his people, would have said, well, good, did you kick him on the way, right? Or serves him right. That's what he gets for hating his people, hating our people, being in that group. Rather, don't you know that's what they probably would have thought or probably would have said? And how many people, when he told what he did, I put my hands on him. And they're like, good. Yeah, but I put my hands on him to clean him up, to heal him, bandage him up, put him on my donkey. I'm walking, he's riding. I found an inn on the road. I pay for him to be cared for there. And I let the innkeeper know that when I'm coming back from business, whatever he was doing next time, if there was more expense, I would pay for him. And I bet the scene was kind of like right now, right? Because it should be that way. Silence. What? Are you kidding me? What were you thinking? What could possibly cause you to act that way or to do those things or to care for someone on the other side like that? See, sometimes we don't know what to do with the answer. Sometimes we're not sure what, because in this storytelling, man, he is trying to really, really, really strike deep. So on the back side of your outline, there's a couple of points there. Actually, there's 7, because I'm a preacher and 7's the biblical number. And and just make a little light of it. And here's what I'm going to do. When the answer is not quite what you want to hear, let me give you 7 things that hopefully you'll kind of catch or understand why I put these in here, but might make you think about this story as far as, what we ask from God. God, help me, show me, make me what you want me to be. Here's just a couple things that I thought were really important. First of all, what the expert wanted, the expert in the religious law, what he wanted to do was to avoid the difficult answer, not the difficult question. He's a guy that he thinks, no, I can handle the difficult question. I'm smart enough. I've figured it out. I've thought long and hard. I've thought ahead. I can handle the difficult question. But he's trying to avoid the difficult answer because he's totally caught off guard. He doesn't know what to say when Jesus does this. Second thing is, his plan was to trap Jesus, and in trapping Jesus, he was going to do what? He was going to justify himself. Because the way to deal with issues of the heart for a lot of us is to say, if I can trap this person who everybody's listening to and they're looking to, but I can show, hey, they don't have all the answers, that they don't have everything right. If I can trap that person, then I can justify myself. And like I said, he had listened to Jesus. He was smart. He knew already, which is what a lawyer does, right? If you've ever heard this about lawyers, a lawyer will never ask a question that he doesn't already what? Know the answer to, right? Because he's smart. He's not just trying to find the answer to the question. He's trying to win something, or he's trying to, justify something in it. This is exactly what he does. He's going to try to trap Jesus in order to justify his own life, who he was. And so he wasn't there, saying, I'm really looking for eternal life. He's there to justify the fact, I have it. Don't tell me that, I don't have it as you're standing here. And then the third thing is, which I think this is just real important, he's thinking, I got you. I got you, Jesus. Yeah, you thought you were smart. I got you. I did my homework. I know what you're going to say. I know how you see things. I got you. I know the answer. In fact, let me tell you something. Unfortunately, this is one of those things I think a lot of people get confused about with Christianity. Sometimes people think that Christianity, and it's just because of the way we present it, the way it's done, that Christianity is about being able to recite some answers. I would always tell people this. I say, when you go to heaven and you stand before God, it's not going to be a written test. You can't memorize the answers. You can't say, I know whether it's A, B, C, so therefore he lets me in. Because God doesn't just listen to the answers. He's just not looking for the box that you check. God does what? You can tell it from Jesus' story. God goes all the way to what? Yeah, to the heart. He goes deep into the life. He's smart. He's smarter than we are. He knows what's there. He knows how to get to what is there, and he gets to what is there because he knows that's the part you have to get. You can't say to God, I got you. You ever know anybody like that? I've been around a few people. I had a few friends that sometimes they would pray that way. I got you, God. You said, so you have to, and therefore I get my way. And I would say, that's dangerous praying. In fact, I would step up and walk away when they would do it. I'd be like, lightning's about to come down. You can't do that with God. Are you kidding me? You can't outsmart God. You can't say, I planned, I thought about it, I got you. You got to give me what I want. God wants. He wants to get to the heart. He wants to change us. Number 4, here's the problem. He doesn't anticipate the next answer. He anticipates, Jesus' first answer. And then when Jesus, says, okay, great, go do this. And, he doesn't anticipate that part. He never thought that Jesus would go all the way to the point of saying, okay, but how about you? If you look at your life, are you actually doing the things that you just said? He doesn't anticipate this next answer of do this and you will live. And then number 5, so he asked the wrong question. When he asked Jesus the who question, who is my neighbor? It's the wrong question. It's not a who question. It's a what question. What does loving your neighbor look like? He's saying, no, which one? And he's saying, it's not a which one. It's a what does it look like? If you were to be the person who understood loving the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, your strength, and you love your neighbor as yourself, it's a what question. What does love really look like? Not, well, who do I have to apply it to? Who do I have to show compassion to? It's a what question. Is it changing inside? Have you caught who God is? Have you caught the character that God actually wants to build in your life? And number 6, let me tie it back to last week. Last week, we said the most dangerous request, or actually I said the most dangerous request. And just to help you catch this, if you didn't catch it, you can go watch online or on your app. Just don't do it right now. The last one, the most dangerous request I think that you can ask from God is open my eyes. It's dangerous. Because here's what God is going to do. God is going to say, okay, I will. I would love to open your eyes. But here's what you have to do if I open your eyes. You have to decide, what am I going to do with it? Am I going to take, when I open your eyes, I show you your own heart. I show you, how you do things, whether or not you really show love and compassion, whether or not you're really loving God with your heart, your soul. When I show you this, I want you to take a good long look. Because I'm showing you this to make a change. So yes, dangerous request, open my eyes. Because, oh my goodness, because this guy's eyes are getting open. He doesn't want to see, what it's being open to. But God is saying, if I open your eyes, you have to be willing to take a good long look at it and to catch it and understand. Some changes will have to take place. It is about bringing some understanding into your life. And then finally, number 7, it just seemed to me that if you have a heart for a neighbor, this is what Jesus' story is about. If you have a heart for your neighbor, then you will see and you will help who? The neighbor. If you have a heart for your neighbor, then you will see your neighbor. You will see the hurt and pain that your neighbors experience. You will pick up on things that other people don't pick up on. You will find a way to care for those that you come across. You will see, and you will find a way to help. It doesn't mean you can fix every problem, but it does mean that you will say, you know what? I can do something here. I can make a difference here. And it seems to me, that's the answer that Jesus wants us to catch. That God is willing. He wants to. If you will say, God, open my eyes. He loves to open our eyes. He wants us to see. But he also wants to catch this answer. That means I want you to see, but I also then want you to do something about it. I want you to take the opportunity. It doesn't mean you can fix every problem. It doesn't mean you know how to fix the world's problems. It doesn't mean that you have become the savior of everybody. It just means as God leads you and as God walks you through life, whether it's someone at work, whether it is someone in your neighborhood, whether it's someone in your family. Man, there's the toughest part. Well, let's forget the family part because that's too tough. But that you say, God, help me, open my eyes. I want to see, but when I see, when you give me that opportunity, that's my neighbor. That's the one that I want to help. That's the one that I will that I will do something about. See, we tend to think, yeah, but what is that going to get me? Or how important are those people? But what you don't understand is this is God's way of shaping and molding and, yes, empowering your heart, because you see it and you say, I'm going to help. I'm going to do something about it. If you do that, will you be taken advantage of at times? You sure will. You know. If you do that, are there going to be times when you say, yeah, I don't know what that really did or what that really helped? But the truth is, one day you might be surprised to find out what that did, how much that helped. Now, I will confess to you, I struggle just like you do. You might say, I don't struggle. Okay, well, we need to talk further. I struggle just like you do. And I have my agenda, and I have things that I want to do. And I have the world the way I want it to be, and things that I want to accomplish. And one of the hardest things to do is to say, open my eyes, help me to see, interrupt my schedule at times, because I know, God, you want to shape and you want to mold my what? My heart. Not just my law and my rules. You want to shape and you want to mold my heart. I'll tell you, and this is one of the ways that God always gets to me. So a couple years ago, I'm in San Diego. I'm in the part that kind of goes over toward La Jolla, because my kids one of them was living there. And so I was there, and we were trying to get into the airport and fly real quick back to Houston. And as usually happens, even though I'm not complaining, my wife says, oh, can you run by and pick up food real quick? And I'm like, we have to leave in like 12 minutes. And there's no, oh, you can do it. Stresses my life out. And so I jump in the car and I went over to, it was a place that did fish tacos. I can't remember in San Diego, real famous, but I pop over there real quick. I jump out, I go in, I'm moving really fast. I don't know if it was Sammy's or anyway, I pop in really fast. I get the food. I'm like, I am not going to make it. I mean, I'm late and it's going to be my fault, because I'm going to say, well, you made us late and I understand how it all works. And I'm popping out, and there's a guy as I come popping out. And he looks like he's probably early 20s. So just to let you know, he was about the age of my son. And he's standing there, and he's not the cleanest dressed and all, but it's clear, that he's probably a pretty, smart guy. He may be even a guy who, went to college, and now he's either, I don't know what's going on. But anyway, as I go by him and as they're crossing the road right there, he says, hey, you got any spare change? And it wasn't, the normal where you get hit with that. And I'm going, right? Are you like this? And it's an inconvenience. I'm thinking, are you kidding me? Do you realize what I'm trying to make? Or how, and I say no. I said, no, sorry. And and it hit me probably 3 steps later. That could have been my son. That could have been my son. And then it hits deep inside of me. That's somebody's what? And then even deeper inside of me is if it's audible, God saying, that's my, it's one of mine. And I stopped and said, hey. And it was true. I didn't have any change in my pocket. Just to let you know, I'm a preacher. I'm not going to lie. I didn't, because I took it out real quick and threw it behind me didn't have any change in my pocket. Instead, I said, hey, hold on a second. And I pulled out my wallet. And I don't remember how many bills I gave him. But I realized he needs it a lot more than I do, Maybe he's going in to eat and can't afford to eat, Maybe he's fallen on hard times. Maybe, he's kind of out trying to find himself, whatever. Now, let me tell you something. Never seen the guy since. Wouldn't know what he looked like if I saw him. But here's what I honestly believe. I honestly believe when you do something like that, can you get taken advantage of? Absolutely. I'm one of the easiest people to take. I'm naive. There's no doubt about it. But here's what I honestly believe. That's a shot. That's a chance. That's an opportunity. Because if that were my son, and I found out that you walked by him and gave him, you know how I'd feel about you? Bless you. That you cared for my boy, my son. How do you think God feels? That you cared for one of His. Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, thank you. You are the one who says, open our eyes. But honestly, God, so many times we're not really sure what we're asking for. We don't really understand the things that you want to set free inside of us, the things that you want to loose, the way you want to shape our hearts by your compassion, by your love, your wisdom, your eyes to see things. Clearly, God, as we're reading this story, Jesus saw and understood the motive of the expert of the religious law. He saw, he knew. But he also knew what the man needed. Just like he knows what we need. God, we thank you that you sent Jesus to live in a real world, real problems, real struggles, deal with real things. He didn't just come and offer a prayer or snap his fingers and everybody's problems went away, but he clearly came here to do a deeper work, a more important work, a more powerful work in our hearts and our lives until the day that is ahead when you set everything right. So God, this morning, I'm asking, do a more powerful work in my heart. Help me to see. Don't let me just close my eyes, justify myself, brush it off, act like it doesn't really matter. But God, would you do something inside of me that you want to do? If you're here this morning as we pray together, maybe you've been looking to make something out of your life. You say, I'm trying to make my life important. I'm trying to make my life meaningful. I'm trying to find things that really make me feel good about my life. And maybe this morning, maybe you, for the first time, you realize, you know what? God's better at it than I am. He knows me like no one else knows me. He's the one that's capable of shaping me and changing me. Just like when Jesus walked around in that area around Jerusalem and Galilee, and he spoke to people and he told stories and he did amazing things and he radically changed the world, and it has been radically changed for over 2,000 years. Sent it in a different direction. Didn't fix every problem, but he sent it in a totally different direction than it was going before. God, that's what I need. I need a totally different direction. I need something that goes deep into my heart. Not just a set of rules, not just a few things that I can use to justify myself on the outside. I need an internal change. And I believe you're the only one that can do it. So Jesus, would you come inside? I've got things in there I don't know how to deal with. I got things in there that no one even knows those things are in there. But I realize you do. You see them. You see my heart. And you don't want to come in and hurt me. You don't want to use those things against me. You want to reshape me. Reshape me. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.